dust cloud ahead, sire.
That's it. Spice mining.
No other cloud quite like it.
Worm sign. Is it worm sign?
Yes, worm. Big one. You've got sharp eyes.
Magic goal! Well, let's have a look at the replay. William, move your head. Look at the size of that boy's head. Shh. I'm not kidding, it's like an orange on a toothpick.
You're gonna give the boy a complex.
Well, that's a huge noggin. It's a virtual planetoid. Has its own weather system.
Inside.
Foreclose that Tristan.
This episode brought to you by Shinra Power Company, bringing power to you. Also in association with Mr. Plow. So remember, call Mr. Plow. That's my name. My name again is Mr. Plow.
And unmuted. Oh my gosh, the Dune popcorn buckets have arrived. It is that special time.
Long last.
At long last, they are here, and they are inappropriate. Much to talk about. I kept thinking, there's not going to be a lot. There's so much to talk about. Good Lord. And we've got everybody here once again. Should I get overly enthusiastic, douchey YouTuber sort of, hey guys, like, comment, subscribe.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button. Oh my gosh, Chance is in the room for perhaps 20 minutes because he gets fussy if he doesn't go to bed on time. With me once again, I have Jason. Jason, how are things?
Yo. Not bad. Watched a couple things this week. I watched The Iron Giant again.
That's a good movie.
Yeah, good movie. I didn't notice it until I was watching it this time how big a deal they made out of the whole the gun thing, especially when the kid right at the beginning he gets his BB gun and he goes out, and then later there's the hunters in the forest thing and they shoot a deer and it's like, oh no, the guns are bad. I'm like, you had a gun at the beginning of the movie. What's anyway? I also watched the first season of Ace. Oh shoot, Ace Attorney. And I gotta say, that game had better be way better than the anime because it was pretty boring.
Can you hear my fan in the background? FYI.
I've never watched it, but
I don't hear nothing.
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Nope.
The battle in the
I haven't
past.
seen the anime. I love it.
Silver loves the game. In the past, there was always this battle of I had to sit in a very hot and uncomfortable room with no fan just because of the danger of it getting into the microphone. So during the summers, it was an interesting podcast experience. We could talk about that more in detail, but we'll shift on. Chance is with us once again. He says, greetings, you heptic pustules on the posterior of creation. I've been plowing through Friday the 13th, the TV series from the 80s, and it holds up well considering how schlocky it was. Awesome. Ross, how are things?
Oh, they're delightful. I been playing some games. Been playing MechWarrior 5 and finished Sniper Elite 5, so that's fun.
Oh. How's
About to
MechWarrior
kill
5?
some Nazis.
I've downloaded it and I was like, oh, it's very MechWarrior janky, but...
Yeah, there's positional damage and armor and
and
all the
rotating
things
your
that
torso
MechWarrior
and
people
all that
want.
silliness. Yeah.
Makes me want to play the Harebrained Schemes BattleTech. I need to re-download it and play that. So, but yeah.
Oh,
been going good.
Well, sweet. Setting the thumper. We must summon our warrior. Oh no, she's here once again.
Oh no.
How's it going?
Monster.
What is this?
What the heck was that?
Cat.
Cat screaming.
Kitty.
Oh my god. All right.
Share that one initially. It's just.
She saved that just for her.
She's got the soundboard, and there's nothing we can do, people.
No, we're all at her mercy.
What's going on? Anything new?
A hectic week, and become more hectic in the next week because teachers love it when spring break comes up. They're like, we can dump a load just of work on you, and then still give you stuff to do over spring break.
Well, my favorite is whenever spring break comes around, they're like, well, you have a break so you can do massive projects. And then every teacher comes out with the same conclusion. And so you have like 5 massive projects all over spring break, all competing.
And when you try to contact them because you have a question, they've all gone on vacation.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Addressing Chance, I have been putting my PlayStation VR through the paces, playing Skyrim VR, and I have to say it's pretty sweet. I quite enjoyed Skyrim VR. I got the PSVR 2, and it's pretty great. One of the better games on that, believe it or not, and I'm not a racing game fan, not really. I play it sort of relaxing for fun, but of all games, Gran Turismo 7 is often considered the best game on PSVR 2.
Nice.
Weirdly.
Nice.
That's the one that we played over at your place, right? Where like you can turn. No, it's a different one.
Well, what you probably played was what is that stupid game? It's on my shelf. I'm looking. Drive Club VR.
Oh,
that might I just
Gran Turismo 7 is actually pretty great.
Just remember playing that at your place, and the fact that you can turn your head, and it's like you're looking out the side window of your car as you're driving it. That was just amazing at the time.
Well, it's still really awesome. I have a secret hope that one day we can record all of us playing Star Trek VR, whether or not that ever is going to happen.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
I have a secret hope. I have no physical soundboard. The literal soundboard is Silver in Discord playing noises. So no, I don't have a soundboard, nor can I afford one. That being said, oh, thank you. It's the shame button. It's the shame button. Also, he laughed because you said dump a load.
Yeah. I knew that'd be pointed out as soon as I said it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I knew that's why you stopped.
Yeah, don't feed the pigs. You get dirty when you play.
We need it.
Good Lord, is
like,
there
oh, God,
a lot to talk about?
Yeah, it's been quite the news week.
Yeah.
It has been. Chance says, I tried playing Star Wars Squadrons VR and it made me nauseous to the point of vomiting. Never again. Well, you don't think the heroic rebel pilots vomited in their spaceships? I have Skyrim. I have Squadrons. I'll play Squadrons with you, or in their suits, or inside little baggies, and take it home for the Wookiees or whatever.
Yeah, I could only play that for about an hour without starting to feel gaggy. At that point, I was like, nah, I got to take this off. I got to
The problem with VR is, so the higher quality of VR, the less of a problem motion sickness tends to be. So the better VR headset, the better and easier it is. But even then, there's an adaptation sort of involved. The more you play it, the less of the motion sickness problems you end up having. So you kind of have to spend time with it, so to speak. It's a special time in everyone's lives. The Dune popcorn buckets have been handed out.
Thank God.
The great little buns have passed around, and we're all happy. Guess what? Me and Jason did today. We saw Dune.
Did you see it?
Yeah, we did.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, you're way ahead of me. I haven't even seen the first one.
Jason hasn't seen the first one.
The first 10
No, I
minutes.
haven't seen the first one.
Dune 1 today.
The thing, okay. Rhett and I were driving to the theater, and he's like, I read some places, and they're like, if you don't go see the first one, you won't know what's happening in this one. I have read the entire Dune series. The only things I haven't read House Atreides or House Harkonnen yet, of the massive amount of stuff that's out there. So I've read the original, 6 books, plus the stuff that Brian Herbert came out with after his dad died, minus 2 books. I've seen the David Lynch movie. I've seen the Alan Smithy version, the one that David Lynch wouldn't put his name on. Yeah. And I've also seen the miniseries that the Sci-Fi Channel did. So when I got there, I had no issues whatsoever with part 2 and not having seen part 1. I knew what happened in part 1. I didn't need part 1 to be able to understand what was going on in part 2. I've read it. There were a couple things that I'm like, oh, I don't remember if that happened in the book or not. Things like that. But for the most part, if you are a fan of Dune and you've read the books, you've watched some of the older movies, you won't be lost in this. Well, it's funny. Part 2 here.
It's funny because I turned to Jason and I was like, so it happens after the betrayal and he meets the Fremen, and he's like, yep, okay. Like that's immediately where it starts out. But he doesn't have the influence of the first film, so it's an interesting, I guess, cross where he hasn't been exposed to the first one, so he's seen the second one sort of fresh and sort of his personal perspective. So Silver, just before the podcast, set up a little spoiler thing. We're going to talk about the movie overall impressions really quickly, and then we're going to do a bit of spoilers, and I'll put it up on the screen for anyone who watches this later so that they're aware while that's on, it's spoiler territory, which nobody does, and they should. And I'm not saying, because there are people who get butthurt about spoilers, and it's like, it's so easy, just put a spoiler thing on the screen. And so if Chance gives a flying fart about Dune, he can run away and hide. What's your initial impressions, Jason, of the film?
Too artsy, boring for a long stretch of it. I would say the last, 20, 30, maybe 30 to 20 minutes is really good. But the first part is just kind of like, meh.
Oh, interesting. What would you rate it, so to speak?
I would rate it 75.
Okay, like out
of 100. Yeah. Okay. Or if I'm giving it stars, I'd say 3 out of 4.
Okay. What? How do I address this? So here's the thing. The movie's getting a lot of attention. I don't have the numbers if anybody cares to look it up, but it seems to be doing pretty well. In a dead time of the year, screw you, it's February. There are two tacks to take with it. The book direction, like how well does it do in terms of the book, and how well does it do in terms of a movie on its own. It portrays certain scenes better than I've seen in other adaptations, and other things it gets wrong, I guess. Well, just omits. If you're a fan of the books, will you just be disappointed in the movie?
Probably not.
Probably not. It portrays certain elements like the Harkonnens in a way that's feels very good as far as the book adaptation would be.
Definitely.
It's visually very pretty. Like it's an accomplishment in filmmaking. It's just dull in other respects. Like it's a very good looking film. And
I have
the
opening
film.
numbers. The visuals are amazing.
Okay, well, what are our numbers?
I was looking that up too.
So
go ahead.
Domestically, it opened. This is just the first thing that came up. I think this is Hollywood Reporter. Dune 2, $75 million plus domestic opening, and Dune and overseas it did this just early. This is must be the very beginning, like 7.6 million. And apparently it has a global opening of 150 million at this point.
That's pretty good.
Again,
I think
one
the
of the
movie
articles
cost or like 190, something like that.
It's not bad if they're already at 170.
Yeah, it's quite a pricey film, but it looks 190 as opposed to watching something like The Marvels, and it's like this doesn't look 350. You know what I mean? It's a good looking film where they spent the money wisely. There's a podcaster I listen to sometimes, and he said that he met one of the guys that worked on the Dune films at Comic-Con. And they asked him, well, it's like, well, how do you spend so little and make everything look so good? And apparently they plan ahead. There's no refilming. There's no readjusting. They plan their shots thoroughly, and then they shoot it, and then they're good. And that you can see it. It's an accomplishment of filmmaking. It's a pretty movie. It's a big accomplishment. I don't know how people are going to see this long term. If they're going to see this as some sort of like classic, if it's going to go down as something you have to experience. I don't know how this is viewed after the fact. I mean, I'm a fan of the David Lynch movie, and that's a weird film.
Yeah, it is, totally.
It's a strange movie.
That's probably a lot of nostalgia for me because I remember watching it with my mom when I was like a younger guy, and I was like 12 or so.
It's a very serious science fiction. We're not talking like, it's not Marvel. It's not like getting a quip every second. It's a very, it's like 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's very serious. It takes the science fiction seriously. This is serious science fiction, and that's how the books were. I mean, refreshingly, which I've heard commented on. Well, I've heard commented on with other people talking about the film, but honestly, the most enjoyable personality in the show was Stilgar, because he had personality and he had some kind of levity in the show. Otherwise, everybody's like, "This is serious. Everything's serious right now." And that's. There's nothing wrong with that, and sort of high-minded, intelligent science fiction. It portrays certain elements of the original story, which I'm not going to get into until we hit spoilers. I think overall it's good. I'd probably go an 8, but that's not too far from where Jason's at the moment. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was good. It's not amazing. I'm not going to, everybody has to go see Dune. It's the greatest freaking film ever. It's really good, and especially in the desert that we have. Hint the intro. It stands out as something pretty good that you can go see, and you're not gonna, get upset or vomit in your VR headset.
Rhett and Jason, here's my most important question for you both.
Okay.
Sure.
Is there a pug in the film?
Is there a pug in
No.
the film? No.
Oh, well, it's already worse than the David Lynch version. Not going to watch it. Get out of here.
Cancel.
For reference, in the chat, I posted the famous Dune pug with Patrick Stewart.
Oh my gosh.
Curiosity before we get into spoilers. Yes, because you're a girl and you can't control yourself. Before we get into spoilers, Silver, what did you think of the first film? Seeing as how Jason hasn't seen it and I have, apparently I'm the only one up to date on all of them.
So I did see it when it first came out, and I watched only like 10 minutes of it today to refresh my memory, and I can tell you I still remember nothing.
Oops.
I'm just like, that guy's name is Paul.
It's a movie that's real stick to your ribs, apparently.
Oh, Al.
Yeah, I remember nothing from it initially.
Ross, can you find the exact quote from Denis Villeneuve about filmmaking?
Producer Ross.
Yes, producer Ross. Go find that.
We're talking the dialogue
comment. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
So
I like the first one. It's kind of dull. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, one of the things I wanted to just mention, we had a chat as we were driving to the movie theater, and you mentioned that there was a lot of hype for this movie, and people were comparing it to the Two Towers, and just like, you have to go see this movie. Yeah,
it's not the Two Towers.
And
it's not.
The thing is that, like, if you go to see any movie right now, I would say, if you're like, hey, should I go see a movie? It's like, you should go see Dune 2. Just because of the other crap. This one will be a palate cleanser for you. Yeah.
I mean, but compared to Madam Web, see
Madam
this
Web
movie.
Or the Marvels.
Yeah, Madam Web is terrible. I mean, I don't know about...
I have that quote.
Okay, what do you got?
It's longer. Do you want me to go through the whole thing, or?
Sure.
So this is from the Times of London. I mean, initially this is a Deadline article, but it's quoted from the Times of London. He says, quote, "Frankly, I hate dialogue. Dialogue is for theater and television. I don't remember movies because of a good line. I remember movies because of a strong image. I'm not interested in dialogue at all. Pure image and sound. That is the power of cinema. But it is something not obvious when you watch movies today. Movies have been corrupted by television," he says later. Describing his ideal situation, he said, in a perfect world, I'd make a compelling movie that doesn't feel like an experiment, but does not have a single word in it either. People would leave the cinema and say, wow, there was no dialogue, but they won't feel the lack of it. He says it drives him crazy. Every film school you go to, they always teach... Oh, wait, no. This is a different... this is from Ethan Hawke. That kind of goes with this. He's talking about how they always teach cinematography, saying it's a visual medium. But then Ethan Hawke says, if you think about it, how many great filmmakers, like film directors or cinematographers? Not very many. If you think about it, though, how many are actors? It's a lot. He quotes Woody Allen, Orson Welles, Spike Lee, Warren Beatty, Robert Redford, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, yeah, so the initial Villeneuve quote is just, he just wants to make a purely visual film.
Well,
Can I say what that reminds me of?
Sure.
So, do you remember the movie The Thin Red Line from like the late 90s? The bastard World War II child of the 90s?
It kind of wants to be a Vietnam movie.
Yeah, so it came out the same year as Saving Private Ryan, but 6 months later. So it came out in December, whereas Saving Private Ryan was a summer movie, as I recall. And oh god, I always forget that director's name. Hold on.
The director was Terrence Malick.
Yeah, Terrence Malick. So Terrence Malick, he's kind of a weird guy, and he had like the same. So when they filmed like the New World years later, like actors would get super frustrated with him because he'd literally see like an animal and want to go film that when they had the entire cast and crew ready to roll. And apparently he had the same problem when filming in Australia and the Solomon Islands for the Thin Red Line, where he would just see something that he liked visually and he'd just go film that. He wouldn't tell actors what they were going to do that day.
Oh my God.
Like, which is super unprofessional, but like from like the
Yeah.
film nerdy, like artisty thing, like weirdly enough, like that kind of gives them the same anxiety that I guess a soldier might have, but it's like horrendously unprofessional. Like that's really stupid. And apparently he got to the point where he didn't know when he wanted to use the dialogue that they had. And he's also renowned for never storyboarding anything, which is weirdly enough the exact opposite of how these Dune films are made, apparently, where they plan everything out to the shot. And that cuts down on a lot of waste. Whereas it appears Mr. Villeneuve and his team do not that at all. Like they are the exact opposite, which is really smart, by the way. I mean, that also keeps your studio happy, so it makes it look like you're not just some jackass
Wasting
burning
money.
through somebody else's money. Yeah.
Right.
But he literally got to the point where he didn't want to film dialogue, and it's like, or he wasn't sure when he wanted to use scenes with dialogues. So jokingly, I think it was one of the producers or one of his crew, like upper crew, was like, "Well, just film it once with dialogue and once without." And he literally went, "Oh my God, that's brilliant." The person who suggested that to him was like, "Oh no, oh." And it's funny because if you watch that movie, you can tell. Because Rhett, you've seen that movie, I assume. Jason, you probably have too, or at least there's a good chance.
I can't say that I have.
Okay.
If it's a war
Well,
movie
Rhett,
and I was in high school, I saw that movie.
Rhett, do you remember that scene where they come across the in the long grass when they come across the Marines that were killed by the Japanese and like dismembered?
Yep.
So I guarantee you that scene had dialogue originally. You know, just typical World War II, like, oh, those bastards, those, saying racial slurs, I'm sure. Like whatever. Like just like genuine disgust and horror. And it's completely silent. Nobody's saying a word. They're just looking around, kind of grossed out, looking at each other for like what is going on, and then they move on. I guarantee you that's one of those scenes.
Yeah, that seems really awkward.
And it works. Like it worked in that movie, but it's like, oh, no other movie would do that. No other director would do that. Can you imagine if like Saving Private Ryan wouldn't have that kind of scene? They never did. Like it's just funny. Like, so I don't know. It reminds me a lot of that. I have a feeling these like very artsy filmmakers have this like fight
Obsession
inside them
with
that's
the
like, well,
image
visual
and
medium.
then storytelling through the. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people have been misinterpreting this quote, which is why it was important to read it accurately. By misinterpreting, they're going, well, he says that television has infected movies too much and that there's overly dialogue and that it's a visual medium. It's like, no, he's saying specifically, I hate dialogue. Like he said, I hate dialogue. I want to make a movie with no dialogue, which he's welcome to do and it could be interesting. That's not the point. On top of that, I don't remember a movie that like I don't remember scenes with dialogue. Everybody remembers scenes with dialogue. We just played images from movies that we love because of dialogue. I don't remember exactly what they were doing in those moments. I mean, think of Lord of the Rings and the quotes that come from that. Like, what are you talking about, Denis? You fake Frenchman.
No, I am your father. I mean, come on. That one is so
righty then.
That one is so iconic that people get it wrong. They remember it as Luke, I am your father, something of that nature. It's that line actually has the Mandela effect because people remember it and it's so iconic.
Well, to be honest, I remember it incorrectly because of Tommy Boy, not because I haven't seen Star Wars a lot.
The other thing is like one of my favorite lines in movies comes from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's when he's fighting with the Black Knight, and he's like, "'Tis but a scratch." Like, seriously?
What the flesh wound?
Exactly.
Precisely. Everybody remembers. So, Silver, having seen the first one, does that quote make sense in terms of who directed that movie?
Yeah, I guess it's just like a lot of staring at each other.
Well, there's a lot of
In the
there's a lot of
first
landscape scenes. There's a lot of like taking your time to look at the scenery. There's a lot of visual story, which is fine. But the problem is visual storytelling is just as important as verbal storytelling. Because,
Oh, yeah.
hey, Denis also made the newer Blade Runner, and that movie sucked. It had problems. And it's like, oh, the guy hates dialogue. Okay, that makes sense because to
Let's
quote,
make a noir film.
well, right. Noir films are quintessentially dialogue and interaction between
Very
individuals.
quippy, very like fast-paced, like tight dialogue.
Right, and that
Yeah,
makes sense why he
voiceovers.
named a film noir movie that sucked as a film noir. Visually, it was pretty. And
Oh, yeah, it was amazing.
It makes sense. But he hates dialogue. What's that, Ross? And you're huffing.
Oh well, I was just gonna say, you know what's funny is like I grew up watching a lot of epics. Like my parents watched those a lot, and my brother did too.
Yeah, you got
And it's
older
funny because it
parents, though.
reminds. Oh yeah, my parents are legit boomers, like genuine, like born in the late 40s boomers. So things like Cleopatra, Lawrence of Arabia,
Lawrence of Arabia.
Dr. Zhivago, and it reminds me of all because like, or God, even though it's not really, well, it's kind of an epic, but like Khartoum. I don't know if you've ever seen that one,
Yeah.
but like, you know, these really gorgeous shots of the desert or whatever, you know what, like just beautiful shots, like panoramas, seen like vistas, whatever. But the thing about epics is, you know what else they have? Tight dialogue. Good tight dialogue. So I mean, it's kind of feels like he's trying to make an epic, and certainly visually, it seems like he's doing a great job of it. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I've always liked his visuals as a filmmaker. I mean, Sicario is one of my favorite movies, but Sicario also has good dialogue in it that's like tight and concise and makes sense for the people saying it. And I guess I just like it almost sounds like he's trying to make an epic, but forgetting that epics have dialogue in them that's well made and tight and whatever. I don't know. Like it's just really weird.
Yep.
Now you can have a movie. Like I remember Wall-E, for instance, Disney's Wall-E. The first, I can't even remember how long it is before anybody says anything in that movie. It's a good chunk of it.
Yeah.
It relies quite heavily on visuals and things like that. I love Wall-E. Wall-E's a great movie, but at the same time, they do tell you things. They do have dialogue in the movie. They do have things that are like, hey, this is we're having interactions between characters here. You can't have a movie where you have two characters come into a room and just sit there and stare at each other without people sitting there thinking, well, this is a big waste of my time. The thing is Rhett and I were talking about this earlier on our way to the movie. And he mentioned this quote to me. And I said, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, because you have to have a balance between the visuals and the dialogue to make a good movie. You have to, there's the show me, don't tell, I think is one of the things that people say. You have to have that in movies where you're showing people things, you're showing them, and you're using those visuals to evoke emotions. Horror movies, for instance, they do it so well with the claustrophobic feeling, with the tight shots and things like that. You have to do that, but at the same time, they're not just completely silent. You know, you have two people, they walk into a room, they meet each other for the first time, and it's just not like, okay, we're going to stare at each other awkwardly for a few minutes. No, they have dialogue. They find out who each other are. They may explain things to each other that we as audience members need to know to advance the plot of the movie. I just don't see how you can have a really, really good movie without something. I mean, even the silent film
I'm open to
cards
the
that were like,
idea. I'm open to the idea of him making a non-dialogue film. I mean, go for it.
oh yeah, go for it.
But it's
Go
like
nuts,
you're
man.
making movies that require dialogue. Perhaps you spend more time.
Well,
Like,
and especially Dune. I mean, because what's the one thing people? I mean, South Park even made a joke out of this. What's the one thing about Dune? It's about people like in the books, people are thinking constantly to themselves.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's so it was a really hard film to adapt for that reason, because it's not necessarily people talking to each other or talking to each other physically is the other thing.
They're talking to themselves.
Or themselves, or somebody's in their brain.
Yeah,
well, and that's part of the reason why Dune is often quoted as an impossible film to adapt because of how internal dialogue is done and whatnot. We're being a dead horse to death at this point. Let's do spoilers for the minute. Okay, spoilers. So a few issues. Now, I'm not going to get really upset that his sister isn't born yet, because she's supposed to be born by the end of the movie, and she's not. The passage of time is something like 2 years while he's in the desert.
No,
and at that point, he has like 2 kids.
He ends up having 3 kids, because one gets killed, and then he has 2 more later.
Right. So none of that happens. But I'm not so upset about slight changes to plot, to adapt it to film, to emphasize things differently. That's fine. However,
right. I mean,
the way they do things kind of it cheapens and simplifies the stories of a lot of the characters, particularly Paul, particularly the Harkonnens. Here, let me give you one example, and let's see if Jason agrees. The Baron's a great character, and you haven't seen the first one, but he's a great, imposing character. The Harkonnens are skeevy, scheming, they're brilliant, they're strategic. The movie makes them come across as like reactive, petulant, incompetent, like they're incapable of stopping the raids, they're incapable of stopping the Fremen. It diminishes the Harkonnens. The movie diminishes the Baron. The Baron's this imposing figure. Then we introduce Feyd-Rautha, and suddenly Feyd-Rautha is like, well, he's just the best Harkonnen. He's just the greatest Harkonnen. And it diminishes, right? It diminishes the Baron. It diminishes the rest of them. And suddenly the Baron's not the big deal. And the movie, instead of treating the Baron like the big enemy it should, it spends a lot of time thinking about the Emperor. So suddenly the Baron's kind of like a feckless, unimportant. Like I've heard this said on Drinker's show. I don't entirely agree with it, but they definitely black and white the Harkonnens the Harkonnens are just super evil bad guys. And there's a lot more nuance to the Harkonnens. They're still super evil, as opposed to somebody on the podcast, on Drinker's show mentioned that, it's like, well, they're not just evil. It's like the Baron is given this face of all he does is desire the throne. Whereas in reality, in the books and in previous content, the Baron actually really only cares about elevating the Harkonnens as a whole.
Right.
He wants to put someone on the throne that's a Harkonnen. He wants to manipulate everything. He wants to put forward his house. But as opposed to in the movie, it's just like, literally at the end, he's crawling towards the throne. Like, I still want it. It's me. And they're very cartoonishly evil.
That was kind of weird when he started crawling towards the throne there at the end. It's just like, what is he doing? Does he think that he's somehow going to be able to sit in the Emperor's chair? I mean, come on.
Well, and it's like Denis misinterpreted like the whole motivation of this character. It's like, that's not what he's about, but it diminishes his character, diminishes the Harkonnens as a whole. They're not as impressive. All of this seems like, well, the Emperor is more of the bigger deal. Chani seemed different, and I actually was not big a fan of the actress. Chani came across as, I'm the only one that realizes what's really going on. She makes a comment in the beginning. So in the book, the Bene Gesserit manipulated everything and created the mythology of the Muad'Dib, of the Muad, to instigate a sort of religious fervor for their own purposes hundreds of years ago, that sort of thing. All of this was conspiring, all of the mythology that the Fremen believe in, that sort of thing. This was all set.
It was a way for the Bene
precursor from the
Gesserit to control the Fremen.
Right.
Because they could control them through the... Go for it,
right.
Sorry.
Chani says right away in the beginning of the second film, oh, that's just a Bene Gesserit scheme. And I was like, no one knows that. No one knows that. Like, what? How do you know that? Like, the Bene Gesserit are like the skeeving behind the scenes people. That's like, oh, that's just an Illuminati thing. It's like, you don't know the Illuminati did that. What are you talking about? And she's extremely skeptical of Paul being this chosen figure. And I was like, I don't remember her being skeptical. Now, having a skeptical person works okay for the film. Maybe if it was a better actor. On top of that, near the end, Paul basically, to take the Emperor's throne, he has to marry the Emperor's daughter. And Chani's his lady. So Chani gives like this awful face and she stomps out and she's all upset. And it's like, in the book, she fully understood what was going on. If I recall, in one of the movies, Chani actually says, I have his heart even if you take his hand, sort of thing. Like she understands the political implications of why he has to marry the Emperor. So there are drastic changes in the Chani character. That being said, it's not played by a very good actor. I don't care much for her. Maybe it's colored by the fact I didn't care for her in the Spider-Man movies. I thought she was the suckiest part. Yeah. I thought she was the suckiest part of the Zendaya of the films. Anything to comment on what I'm saying so far, Jason?
To me, in the movie, she was kind of a non-entity. Insofar as like the actress herself, the character in the movie to me was mischaracterized and played incorrectly. She supported Paul. I never got the sense that she was like, oh, he's the Messiah and I've got to worship him. But she was very much like, he is Paul. He is Muad'Dib. I will follow him to the ends of the earth. I will do whatever needs to be done because he's Paul. And to me, that's not who Chani was in the film. Chani in the film was, like you said, she's like the person who knows that the wizard is behind the curtain and is constantly trying to show people. It's like, she's sitting there screaming out at people, this is how they control you. I think that was an exact quote, was, this is how they control you. It's like,
you wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
Well,
the thing is that, go ahead.
Here's the dumb part. So Paul constantly, and this is a important aspect of the book. Paul has this reticence about going south.
Yes.
Because he's fighting against the enemies of his family, he's joined the Fremen, he's doing everything, but he believes if he goes south, it'll set in course a bunch of events, almost like the tides of history have taken away free choice from him. And things are just going to happen the way they are. And she keeps assuring him, they're not going to happen this way, I'll be with you, yada, yada, yada. He goes south, immediately she's like, who is this guy? Screw you, you're not the guy I remember. I was like, what the hell is this? What, like suddenly an about face? Like, he kept telling you this was going to happen, and you're like, whatever. I don't like it anymore. It's like, okay. Like, what's your response to this? On top of that, it felt his sudden turnaround from reluctant to warmonger happened almost immediately. He drank some stuff, had a little nap, and suddenly he's like, let's kill them all. And the turnaround felt far too quick. Jason,
Yeah,
am I wrong
that was
here?
no, you're right. The other thing in my estimation is that they also got Paul a little bit wrong. It felt to me in reading the books, yes, Paul was reluctant to go full bore Muad'Dib in the books because he had envisioned he'd had these visions of the future where there were millions and billions of people who died, and it was all because of him. But at the same time, he knew the power of the Bene Gesserit religious program that had been seeded on countless worlds across the empire, and he was willing to use it to further his own goals and his own ends. So one of the first things he does in the movie is his mother. They approach her to be the new Reverend Mother because their current Reverend Mother is dying. And they give her the water of life, and she's supposed to transmute it so it doesn't kill her, and she becomes a Reverend Mother. When they get done, Stilgar is like, see, I told you, he's the Muad'Dib. Look, his mother is she's actually a Reverend Mother. She did it. And Paul's like, no, this is bunk. The only reason she was able to do this was because she's been trained to do this. I was like, that just feels a little bit wrong there, Paul. Sorry.
Well, it didn't feel like they wanted Paul to almost be like an Aragorn, like a reluctant to take the mantle. But the thing is, we just watched Dune 2 and we're super talking about it, Jesse. Welcome. The thing is, Paul wasn't really, as I recall in the books.
Right. He wasn't.
He was motivated for his house. He was motivated for revenge. He was motivated for other things.
The only thing I remember about him in the book, and I've only read the first one, not the second, is that he was always worried about if what he's doing is playing right into the hands of the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah.
And going to create the future that he sees, that he keeps seeing, that he doesn't want. Like, because he keeps seeing the Holy War or whatever.
Yeah, he keeps seeing that jihad, and he doesn't want that. But he wants to make use of the Bene Gesserit religious program to further his revenge against the Harkonnens and stuff. But it's that he's trying to thread that line between, like I said, he was reluctant to go full Muad'Dib, and that's why for a long time in the book he didn't want to take the Waters of Life. Whereas it was there were a couple of things that happened that in the book that was like, oh, I need to do this because I just can't see far enough ahead to guide my path.
Mm-hmm.
Raban seemed diminished. The Baron seemed diminished. Fade was awesome. Not only awesome, but played really well. Really sort of creepy, and I thought that he
out
did
of
a great
everything,
job.
I think he was my favorite thing about the movie.
He did a great job.
He was a good bad guy.
Weirdly enough, we spend time on Fade, this huge amount of time building him up as this big deal, and all of a sudden there's like this big dead area, and then he shows up at the end. It's like, oh yeah, Fade. Remember Fade?
Remember me?
And this time it's not Sting fighting him for control of the Empire.
I wanted to turn to you in the movie and say, too bad it wasn't Sting.
Fade is really good. I thought the Emperor has done really well in the first one. Did a good job. Christopher Walken wasn't too much into it. The Baron is really well done, really well acted. Once again, a bit diminished by how they portrayed him. Overall, I really liked it. Once again, I'm saying an 8, It's really good. It's not amazing, but it's good. And for someone who loves the books, who have read them all, I own the sci-fi version of Dune on DVD. I'm a fan of Dune. I like them, but they exist in a. Christopher Walken is a classic choice. Jesse responded saying, "I thought Christopher Walken was not a good choice." He didn't stand out as far as acting.
Muad'Dib, please don't kill me.
No, I want my empire.
Just marry my daughter. We'll call it good. Please, it wasn't me. It was Harkonnen's idea.
I think he did fine for what it was, but I think they should have. He seemed too old. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Christopher Walken seemed quite old in this film.
Because he's supposed to be an older guy, but I mean, he's like 15 years too old for that part.
Yeah. The thing is and this may just be because I've gotten the sense of it from the David Lynch films and stuff. The guy that they had playing the Emperor in the David Lynch film was much more robust. I mean, he was an older guy at the time, white hair and everything, but he just seemed so much more healthy and alive than Christopher Walken did.
No,
he was fine. He was fine. He, like Rhett said, he didn't really stand out. But
you know what? Come to think of it, I didn't care for a lot of. So the Emperor needs to be seen as above everybody. So it seems like this big accomplishment. He does. And in the end, they have him in this giant Palantir, whatever, sitting atop this like huge pyramid sculpture, and like the Baron is like kneeling before him and whatever. Most of the movie, he's doing like Godfather-esque skeeving in a garden. And they need to have him almost sit like he's above and apart. And they made it
like his his underlings that are orchestrating that, almost like he's disconnected from it.
They made him almost sympathetic and kind of pathetic, diminished, I guess. Almost like an old man sitting in the garden trying to deal with the results of what have happened.
Yeah,
like
and he's supposed to be the emperor of an intergalactic empire, and he just didn't really seem that.
Get off my lawn!
Get off my well-manicured lawn!
My well-manicured lawn. I don't want to drag this discussion out too much. Jesse, we talked about Dune quite a bit more earlier. You're welcome to listen to previous stuff. Anything you want to add before we leave popcorn buckets aside?
The one thing that I will leave here at the end is the popcorn buckets were a mistake.
What, you don't like the butt?
No.
The popcorn butt? You don't want to reach into the worm's mouth to get your popcorn?
Oh, I just like how there's like
especially when it doesn't look like its mouth.
So you have to get greasy like popcorn all over that. Like, so gross. Like, I don't.
They're selling on eBay for like $50-$60.
I am not surprised.
Well, I gotta get one before they go. Like no one's ever seen the anus of popcorn buckets before. They're gonna go away. Sit it on your mantelpiece. Talk about it for years to come. Oh, get over it. We moved away from spoilers. I enjoyed Dune despite my criticism. It's a good movie. It's an accomplishment of filmmaking. It has problems and it has issues when in comparison to the original work of the book and even previous iterations, but whatever.
Yeah. But like you said, if you're thinking about going to it is a good movie, and if you're thinking about going and seeing a movie right now with the offerings that are out there, go see
in the
Dune.
desert.
Yeah, in the desert, go see the desert movie.
Yeah. What do you say we do Silver's Corner now before we do the?
Go for it.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! It opened up your game. Here, I'm gonna move this to full screen.
Now I need to explain this game. You've briefly seen it, but basically,
I have an idea of what
art.
it is.
Yeah, so I've taken cover art of a bunch of different games. I forget how many I have. I think it goes up to like 43. We could stop whenever.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah, I know. So I've cropped the pictures of the cover art, and I'm gonna have you all compete to who guesses what game it is first. Some of them are easier, some of them are harder.
This
Might be incredibly easy on some of them.
Are we going to use the Discord chat to answer? How are we doing this? Just yelling it out?
Well, let's just
whoever I hear yells it out first gets a point.
Perfect.
I'll keep track.
My gosh.
And yes, we're going to see who is the OG DG.
My glasses on scholarly, and I will...
Oh no.
Yes, this is made in like Google presentations.
Oh, it looks great. What do you mean? Huh? I couldn't notice.
You could have at least upgraded to PowerPoint. Come on.
You're gonna have to tell me when to move to next, I guess.
Okay.
I need Jeopardy music.
So to number 1.
Mario 3.
Ooh, Minecraft.
No.
Yeah, Minecraft.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Is that Minecraft?
Yeah.
That's Minecraft. I put hints in every
tell.
single one, and that's the top corner
I can tell
of the Minecraft cover art.
Yep. I can tell the
Okay,
font.
next.
Mario Galaxy.
Super
Mario Galaxy.
Oh gosh, I don't know who said that first.
That was me.
Wash.
I'll take your word for it.
Completely unbiased.
I am unbiased. What do you want? This is my podcast. I will mute all of you.
I don't know. Jordan couldn't hear anybody. It's weird.
It's weird. I'm really good at this game. Oh.
Next one, whenever you're ready.
Persona 3.
Well, it depends on which one.
How do you know that?
No, it's 4.
God, you anime nerds.
I mean,
weeboos.
Okay, what if I make a new rule here? This is Persona 5.
I was gonna say 5.
Well, so he doesn't get the point. He doesn't get the point. You have to be accurate
Persona
which
5.
one it is. No, that's not how this happens.
Title of Persona 5, I'll give you double points.
No.
You get 1 right now. This is my game.
Oh my god. I already questioned your pointing system.
Not to agree with Rhett too much, but I don't know about that one, Chief.
If you really don't
You should have said Persona 5, man.
But the point is knowing the box art, so you can't just go, it's a Mario game. I said it's a Mario Galaxy game. So you have to know what you're talking about.
5.
Everything I could take away from Jason.
Get the moral victory of Persona, then. Get a moral point. All right.
Yeah, but be sure to mark moral points, because I'm going to ask how many moral points we have after this. Anyway,
Okay,
moving on.
1 moral point.
Doom 64.
Oh, it's probably Doom 64.
Probably.
Just original Doom.
Damn.
Oh, so I got it then, because I came in first, but I was like, I second guessed. Yeah, I would have guessed that was 64.
Next.
Mario 1.
Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, Super Mario.
Well, is it Mario 1 or Super Mario Brothers?
No, it's Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Well, I knew what it was. I know it's not called Mario 1.
There ain't no Mario 1 on the box. Come on.
Hold on, let me open my key. I got a key.
Oh my gosh.
Like a teacher.
Well, see, this is one of those situations where I'm clarifying which Mario it is, but it's like, well, it's not Super Mario. Okay.
It's Super Mario Bros.
Oh,
That's all it is.
This is bullcrap.
Next.
Red
Dead
Dead
Redemption.
Red Dead Redemption, yeah.
Yeah.
Ross got it.
Yep.
Red Dead Redemption
Actually,
2?
Yes!
Yeah! Because I saw that little
How
red in the
on God's
corner and I was
green
like, that's the second one. This is such a
Yeah.
jip. Victory for Red.
Next. Yeah.
Grand Theft
GTA
Auto,
5.
Or
Andreas.
GTA 5, I said, but it could
Grand
be San
Theft Auto.
Andreas. Is it just the first Grand Theft Auto?
Hold on.
no. They
Grand
wouldn't have
Theft
a box
Auto
art like
5.
Hey, I got it!
Gross.
Yay. All of you bask in my glory.
that. Ew, it's the worst Grand
So
Theft Auto
far,
game.
we have Rhett at 4 points, Ross with 1, Jason with 1, but 1 moral point.
You're gonna feel
Okay,
good about
next.
that when you lose. Witcher
The
3.
Witcher,
Witcher
the Wild
3.
Hunt.
It is The Witcher. Yes, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
That was me.
Well, Wild Hunt is the DLC. It's not the full game.
That's
Same
the
game.
picture I have. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, good
Well,
lord.
that's the cover art for the DLC.
Ugh.
I wanted to make this painful, and I'm
It
succeeding.
is painful. It's really awful. Go ahead.
Who said it? No.
Well, if you're
I think
counting,
Jake.
I said Witcher 3 first, but then he said Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, so I don't know
It
what
was
to
Jake.
say.
To be fair, let's say if you had said, let's say one of them is Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare, and you just said Red Dead Redemption, I personally would not accept that. To be fair. Like, you'd have to say Undead Nightmare, because they are distinct.
Okay, because of the separate DLC, and it's a whole separate game.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, is it Witcher 3, or are we now just classifying also the box art for DLC? These rules are arbitrary and stupid.
I think this is the only one that I accidentally chose a DLC. I've never actually played The Witcher, so...
I have. I think I'm the only one that has played The Witcher 3.
Probably.
Yeah, I've only played the first
So
two.
you can't have DLC without the base game, so I'll give it to Red.
No.
My favorite is if I complain enough, I get points.
We should
Yeah,
have
you're
half
wimping
point
out.
each. Half point for Rhett, half point for me.
I would accept that.
Okay.
I would not accept that.
As the
And
guy
you're
who
not in
lost,
charge
I
of
would
this.
accept that.
You're not in charge of
I'll
this.
accept that.
Oh my
have to-
god. Don't
Thank
cave
goodness
into
for
If
to
you put Witcher
whining.
3 and you would accidentally put the DLC on there, I would accept a half point each.
Ugh.
Glory
Erase
to you and your
Okay.
quiz game.
half and
Oh my
Half.
gosh.
okay.
You
Next.
just have to say okay.
Ghostbusters
don't
the video
know.
game.
Video game.
Well,
Yep,
that was Ross
Ghostbusters
first.
the video game. I think. Yep,
Yeah.
Ross got that.
And guess who likes Ghostbusters the least? This guy.
Ross.
Dear.
Nah. Anyway,
What can I say? Bustin' makes me feel good.
Ross makes me feel good.
Okay, next.
Cyberpunk
2077.
2077. I got it.
Oh, Phantom Liberty? I can't remember.
That's not Phantom
But
Liberty.
Sure.
It's 2077.
Yeah.
Thing is, I heard Red get that first.
Yeah, I did
Bullshit.
get it first.
You were wrong.
I heard Ross first.
Not even close. He started after
Okay,
I
you
started
gotta let me
playing Cyberpunk.
clarify. Sometimes it's really hard to tell.
Well, you got 2077 before I did. I started saying Cyberpunk first, though.
Nah.
Oh, for some reason I thought I heard Red say Cyberpunk
I did.
2077.
I'm
I said
sorry,
Cyberpunk
Mr.
2077.
4.5 points or 5 points? I don't think so.
I want you to
Yeah,
feel bad
4.5
about your life when
points.
this is over.
Well, I don't, because I won that one.
Yeah, but you didn't, so...
But I did.
No, now you're just going to half points this again.
2077, and right as I said cyber, you were like, Cyberpunk.
No.
I will fight you on this.
Literally, you could go back and listen to the stream and listen to me come in first, I guarantee you.
No.
There's got to be a delay in the chat or something.
Nah, huh.
Yeah.
Whose fault would that be, Rhett?
God.
Because he hates me.
Well, because he made Discord, apparently.
Because he made the internet. Yes, this is a fact.
Yeah.
It's in the New Testament, I believe.
Crying next.
In the New Testament. Wouldn't that be Genesis? And in the beginning, God created Google.
Well,
and it
no,
wasn't that
because it's
good.
newer.
Oh.
First, he created Ask Jeeves, and he went, "Oops."
The search engine was crappy, and it was not good.
The search engine was lacking.
Jeeves doesn't know what he's talking about.
Nah.
Okay, Silver.
Okay, next.
I don't know.
Terrible 2000s tattoo.
Terrible 2000s tattoo.
What?
Borderlands 3.
Yes.
Oh, no
Yeah,
wonder.
of course
It's
Jason
that
would
game
know
that
this.
haunts me in my dreams. That game's awful. That's the grenade I'm putting in my mouth when I kill myself after playing that game. Game blows. Look, kids, it's a single-shot shotgun with a 7-time scope. Enjoy.
And guess who got it? The one who loves Borderlands.
You know what? They deserve each other.
I did purposely pick a few that I thought one would know over the other. So yeah.
Smart. You're a smart lady. You're a smart cat, Godzilla. What can I say?
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Next.
God of War.
Ragnarok.
God of War Ragnarok, yeah.
Yeah, it's the first one with his boy.
Well, Jason said God of War first, but Ross said Ragnarok first.
So it's Jason. If it's the first one, then...
Well, he didn't get which one.
Yeah, that one was just
It's
called
only called God of
The
War.
first one was just God of War. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
there you go.
Jason
We're
gets
in that era, Rhett, where nothing has...
Yeah, I hate
subtitles
all
and
of
no
the new
numbers.
God of Wars.
Remember when they made Suicide Squad, and then they made Suicide Squad 3 years later? Different movies, different directors.
Well, aren't they called
Whatever.
slightly
Harley
different? Like, what is it?
No, they're literally called Suicide Squad. I thought so too, and I looked it up yesterday. They're terrible. These movies are so stupid.
Remember when they did Birds of Prey and no one went to go see it, and they thought it was because they didn't know Harley Quinn was in it, so they changed it to to Birds of Prey, like
Birds of Prey.
The something of Harley Quinn or whatever, like, and it was already in theaters.
Yeah.
Hey, it could be worse. You could be editing your movie while it's in theaters. Oh.
Which happened to
Oops,
multiple
cats.
movies. Well, was it the Emancipation of Harley Quinn?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Next.
Animal
Animal
Crossing.
Animal Crossing.
There's a
was Jason.
subtitle.
Switch version.
Animal Crossing. That bastard raccoon stole my money.
The mayor's an a-hole. That's all we got. We do not play Animal Crossing.
Okay. It's
New
Animal
Horizons?
Crossing
New Horizons.
Yeah.
Pulled that right out of my a-hole.
You're saying that right. I was about to say, I'll give that to Ross.
Yeah.
There you go.
I haven't played an Animal Crossing game since 2005.
I've never played Animal Crossing.
Never played Animal Crossing.
Nor do I desire to. We ready?
Yeah.
Just say it.
Go. Next.
Battletoads.
Yeah, Battletoads.
Yep.
Jealous.
I
You know why I
delayed and then
didn't
I was
know
like,
that
yeah,
one?
but the game sucks. And Jason's a liar, by the way.
Oh, Battletoads is great. What?
No, Jason claims he beat level 3 and he did not.
I did.
No, you
didn't.
Shut up.
Totally did.
No one believes you, famous liar Jason.
Listen here, Jason. I will not have you just lying to people on our podcast. We have a reputation to uphold.
You might have gotten
Bob
the
Ross,
point, but you
Ross.
lose a moral point on this one. Making stuff up.
There's
No
also
one
a warp
thinks level
point
3.
at if you go
Yeah,
far
don't.
enough.
Yeah, I'm guessing you looked up videos just to back up your story. Make it sound more legitimate.
The age of Let's Play has been great for Jason's lying.
I don't think I could do it anymore.
He could claim
I don't think
glory that wasn't his.
I don't think my reflexes are sharp enough anymore.
This is stolen
Battletoads,
valor.
the best first 2 levels of any game on the Genesis
Oh, seriously?
16-bit era. That's all anybody ever saw, including Jason.
Stolen valor is what I'm calling. Stolen valor.
Gamer stolen valor.
Gamer.
Snowman were not easy.
Okay, so there is how many more do we want to do and maybe keep this game going into the future? Because there's a lot of other stuff to talk about, and 43 is a lot.
How many have we gone through so far?
I don't know.
How many points do we have?
There's a counter on the PDF, though. Let's see. We got Rhett with 4.5, Ross with 4.5, Jason
You get
with
4.5.
Wow, you cheated.
Yeah.
You split.
I should have like 2.
No, you got the Animal Crossing one, and you got the. Oh, what was you got a couple others in there, and I don't remember which ones. So it looks like we've gone through, what, 12, 16-ish? Somewhere around there.
I'm cool with keeping this, keeping the lid on it and keeping it fresh till next time, too. This is fun.
Yeah, just
if you
the
count
long
the moral
running.
Point, 13.
Okay, so we are on
The
Battletoads.
wailing and gnashing of teeth.
We are on Battletoads. We'll remember Battletoads. It's a great game, everybody. Silver did a good job.
Yeah, you did. Excellent.
I did it.
Hey, here, I'll do the.
I wonder if somebody's made a kazoo version of the music when Godzilla happily goes back into the ocean.
I don't know. I bet you could get an AI to do it.
Oh yeah.
Well, complaints will continue into the future, but we have more news to talk about. Good Lord. Do we want a news? Let's news dump.
The Distracted Gamer Podcast's big steaming pile of news dump.
Yes,
Really
news dump,
upsetting he's wearing
everybody.
pants.
What's your problem?
Yay.
It's upsetting he's wearing pants. I don't like.
You,
the
what? You go to the
implications
you
are
go
poor.
to the bathroom with your pants down? What's wrong with you?
Well, when I'm sitting on the toilet, they're down. I hope.
Well, it's like one of those old pajamas.
Thankfully, I don't
It's
drink,
got a
so I've never
flap
had
at the
that
back.
problem.
How do you contain? What if you're never nude?
I was gonna say, how do they get around that?
I don't know.
Wasn't it Ulysses S. Grant that will brag that nobody had seen him nude since he was a baby?
Is that a?
I mean,
a brag?
he was
Boast
drunk a
about.
lot, so I could see him making that claim. He was a horrendous alcoholic.
Let me make sure that I got the correct window.
I see someone snooping around the Google Doc.
You know it. Yay! So here's the thing when it comes to this story. So initially, word got out that a new supervillain was hitting Marvel that was kind of an incel, whose whole purpose was he's going to get rid of women from Marvel.
Oh my gosh.
Initially, the reaction was extremely negative. They were like, this is stupid. I don't know where you're going with this. So here's the strange thing, as this article doesn't really relate. The women defeat him, and he goes, well, let's see, I'll read this. I've been online a lot lately. I suppose you'll want to send me back. And she says, yes, please. And he's called the mitigator, or the incel, if you will. The lady's response to this comment was, no, we don't want to get rid of the men. There are a lot of great men out there. And then they start talking about how much they love Spider-Man and Luke Cage and all these other ones. And then the response from women on the internet was, why make a feminist-themed Marvel comic and then ruin it by telling everybody how good men are? And then I was like, oh, so everybody got this wrong. That it wasn't a horrible incel villain, that the point was, hey, both men and women are great, and the mitigator was manipulating things to try and get the other side to call for the other one's destruction, and no one wanted to kill either side. And so it started out with like a bunch of trolls on the internet being really upset, and then all of a sudden the women on the internet are really upset. Or at least the feminist Marvel contingent, so to speak.
The five of them.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride when it comes to reacting to what's going on. Nope, don't want that. Yeah, it's a strange occurrence going on. Thoughts?
That's so dumb. Seriously.
Marvel writing's still strong, huh? Oh wait, no.
Well, Marvel writing's still not great. I don't know what to tell you.
The thing is that it does seem to me that they are actually, and at least in this comic, they're reaching out an olive branch to their previously alienated fans and saying, no, you guys are actually okay. Please come back to us. But I just don't see that it's gone far enough to appease the fans and bring us back to Marvel, because it's like, this is lip service. It's,
I mean,
Spider-Man's
all of it's pandering
okay
now. All of it. I'm just saying that the story was funny.
Well, like, I mean, even if that's what they're trying to do,
funny
that's
in a
really
cringe
dumb
way
of going about it. Like,
yeah.
I famously, I mean, not famously, but amongst you all, you know, I don't read comic books and didn't as a kid because I lived out in the middle of nowhere.
No, don't underplay your national fame of non-interest in comics, Ross.
I mean, it's well known.
International, I would say. There's some guy in Kenya who's like, yeah, Ross doesn't like read comics. He doesn't like them.
International superhero hater. But like, that would annoy the crap out of me. Even if it was like purely positive and they were absolutely clearly trying to get you back as like a old comic book fan, like that would annoy the crap out of me if I was one of them.
Yeah.
Like, that's dumb. Like, just write a good story again. Like, can you just make good comics?
Leave
we constantly have to talk on
out, leave the politics out, just do a good story.
Do we constantly have to have culture war commentary? Is that what we have to do? Can't we just make stories? I've been online a lot lately.
Unfortunately, that's the way it seems now. It's like if you don't comment on the culture war, it's you get canceled.
Silence is violence.
Yeah.
Silence is violence.
And at the same time, words are also violence.
Words are violence.
So you can't win either way.
Punches are violence.
Listen, if you just don't do exactly what I want, it's violence.
At this point, we just all need to smile and nod.
Yep.
That is the correct answer.
Moving on to the next story.
Godzilla Cat knows.
As Godzilla Cat knows. So apparently, according to Crunchyroll's president, AI-generated subtitles are in the horizon.
Yeah. I mean,
anime streaming
we talked about that.
Well, we talked about this as they're now looking at subtitles. Now, the president of Crunchyroll is like, yeah, we're super probably going to do this. Anime streaming giant Crunchyroll is reportedly looking into generative artificial intelligence for subtitling and closed captioning, as confirmed by President Rahul Purini. That's like an Indian Italian name right there.
Yeah.
The confirmation came during an interview in The Verge's Decoder podcast. The president answered a multitude of questions regarding the anime industry in general and how Crunchyroll looks to grow in the coming years. When questioned about exciting technologies such as AI being used in the anime business, Perini responded that AI is obviously something that the firm explores in a number of processes across the organization. He claims that Crunchyroll is now testing subtitles and closed captioning, yada, yada, yada.
The thing is that it was coming for one, because they were always going to I think they were always going to head in this direction, but because we had the stories of the localizers actually tampering with and changing the dialogue to be what they wanted it to be, as opposed to what the creators originally wrote it to be. Yeah, this is just pushing them in that direction.
Awesome. As a resident anime lover, Silver, what do you think?
I don't mind them going to use subtitles. Like we said with what was happening before, how they're changing the subtitles to reflect their ideals more. I really don't mind them using AI to do it. I think it'd be more accurate that way.
Probably. All
Well,
right.
it looks like it says later in the article that like the ones that they've already tried aren't great, but I mean that's just for now. Like it's gonna get
They'll
better.
get better. Yeah.
So,
Ross, we've now come to Vice and BuzzFeed as far as media and the effect of what's going on. If anybody isn't aware, Vice.com has shut down, and they're claiming that they're reorganizing. My guess is they're going to sell the IP. BuzzFeed has sold its building.
oh dear.
And media is on the decline. Ross?
So I don't know. I used to. I mean, I was never a BuzzFeed guy, but I did like Vice. I mean, we're talking like 11, 12 years ago. It was some of my favorite stuff to watch. When I'd get home from work, I'd go through their documentaries because they did a lot of fun stuff back in the day. Like they'd send guys out to have talk to people in Uganda about homemade banana booze called waragi, and
one of the more famous
one of
ones that I saw was the homeless living in the sewers, in the storm drains.
Yep. Yeah. And then famously, one of their which one was he? One of their reporters, one of their hosts, got kidnapped in like what was it, 2014, by pro-Russian separatist types. His name was Simon Ostrovsky. That's right. And I think that's really kind of where they hit like mainstream news, just because of that. But like for a long time, they were really held up with their. This is before I think they were even Vice News technically. They're really held up as making really quality stuff. They'd go to North Korea and all these places that people wouldn't normally go, and it was really interesting. And now, as millennials have gotten older and as the internet has changed, it looks like that's kind of going away. And it's interesting. This article, at least, when I read it, and some of the other stuff I've read online, it's like BuzzFeed and Vice kind of based their business on working the algorithm. But the problem when you do that is the algorithm changes, and especially it's like kind of like specifically with BuzzFeed. Like Val's probably too young to remember, but I know Jason and Rhett will remember. Do you remember the listicle era of Facebook?
Yeah.
Yeah, just that awful time when everything was a listicle link. Well, they kind of shot themselves in the foot because like Facebook realized how ugly that was making Facebook and like how annoying it was, and so they changed the algorithm to really to get rid of those. They changed the rules, and on top of that, Facebook went from just wanting everybody to come through Facebook as much as they could to wanting to keep them on Facebook. So now anything that has an external link is kind of batted down in the algorithm. So it's if that's true, if what this article is saying is true, as part of it is that they were wagering on the algorithm and then never changed with it. I mean, that's wild. How could they not hire people to like work with that? But whatever, this is a world that I don't understand, to be fair. But yeah,
that's a world that traditional media doesn't understand because they haven't been able to adapt to the changes.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that like these sites are kind of getting hit hard now before any of the old traditional media. But I think it's because the people that they were courting as their clientele were people like my age, Rhett's age, Jason's age, who've now moved on to different ways of consuming their media online. Social media has really hurt them, and they just haven't been able to follow through.
Well, and not to swing it and imply any sort of motive, but they did weigh in on the culture war and heavily in one direction, which caused basically pigeonholing. Whenever you get political, you basically alienate a portion of your audience. And Vice used to be just sort of a general audience reporting on great stories and interesting, and they're on the ground and whatnot. And then it's just like, oh, Gamergate, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, they became a meme. Like their headlines became meme worthy. And I think there was even like a generator. Wasn't there like a Vice headline generator and a BuzzFeed headline generator at one point?
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's because what do they call those? Do they call those special interest or like those kind of articles or like little mini docs? Like almost like you'd see on PBS, but not necessarily safe for work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Tim Pool worked for the special interest with Vice.
Yeah, and like that's kind of how Vice was. It was just like these weird stories about stuff that nobody on mainstream media would ever cover. They'd never pay for. And then they started really kind of waiting. Once they became, I think, had their like Vice News wing, they kind of began wading in more on things that were like mainstream political motivated. And it's just that's when I like really checked out, because that's not what I watched Vice for. I watched Vice for like Syria and Ukraine and like weird like cultural things that goofy countries that you've never thought about or heard of, as far as like their intricacies or whatever. Like that's what I liked, is seeing some goofy Brooklynite standing among a bunch of like absolutely hammered Ugandans as they drink their banana moonshine. Like that was great. Like that's the stuff I was there for. And they just kind of moved away from it.
Vice and BuzzFeed aren't the only ones taking the hit, so to speak. As we move on, tech layoffs in February 2024 are over 15,000 jobs cut at Cisco, Sony, Amazon, and other companies. Wow. The cuts bring a total tech industry losses to around 50,000 in 2024. 50,000.
Well,
that's like a factory.
There was tens of thousands last year too.
Yes, they are dying. Cisco 4,000, Expedia 1,500, Sony lays off 900 employees at PlayStation, closes down its major studio. Amazon cuts 400, Snap laid off 500. Amazon, a little while ago, I want to say it was 700? I don't recall the story, but they were specifically tied to Amazon's movie studio.
That's understandable.
Yeah, well, their movie studio sucks. Paramount cuts 850, not surprising. EA lays off 650 employees and cancels an upcoming Star Wars game, which apparently was almost done.
Why would you do that?
Well, dude, poor Respawn, man. They can't catch a break. Like, they were working on Titanfall 3, and then it's like, no, make that Battle Royale game. And what's funny is we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's just crazy.
Well, let's talk about the canceled Respawn game. EA cancels Respawn Star Wars shooter amid massive layoffs. On February 28th, IGN reported that Respawn's still in development Star Wars FPS has been canceled. The news was shared via memo to staff from EA's entertainment president, Laura Miele. It's always hard to walk away from a project, and this decision is not a reflection of the team's talent, tenacity, or passion. Yada, 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 corporate speak. Laying off 670 people. There is something, there's a chopping block headed across digital media, not just content, but also video games and not, it's weird. Like I was just about to say, no one's talking about it. People are addressing it, but they're not addressing the fact that it's happening everywhere. And this is becoming right. It's not just one industry. Newspapers, digital news for video games, video game companies, studios, when it comes to Amazon, Paramount, we're talking across the board. Massive layoffs with people who work and create content in the digital space. Comments?
It's understandable that they're laying off so many people. The problem is that they've been doing so poorly recently that they just kind of need this at this point. It's like, you guys have been doing crap. You know.
Okay, understandable. Clarify and be specific. Is everybody producing poor content and that's what's creating this? Because there is an article I have that claims that's not what's happening.
Yeah, I don't think that's what's happening.
Well, the thing
I would say that's what's happening. You make bad products. Amazon makes poor products. They're doing poorly. Disney makes poor products. They're doing poorly. BuzzFeed, Vice, and all of these companies, for better or worse, have weighed in on the culture war and have scared off massive amounts of them. Like, what happened to companies that were neutral and just made product and everybody could consume? When you alienate part of your consumer base, and this is a bad idea, part of your consumer base decides not to buy your product. And there's a big discussion that me and Ross are going to have a little bit from now that's related to these sorts of things. Now, there are others who claim that that's not what's happening. And I have another article to address that. Maybe we should shift to that and I'll go find it.
I think it's going to be a combination of things. Like
it's probably a combination of things. I think it's easier for us to
of AI,
come up with
especially
one.
with a lot of these tech places, is a big part of that.
Well, right, but according to this article, all the tech layoffs are because AI is like a corporate Ozempic. It trims the fat and keeps the fact you're using it a secret, says marketing guru Scott Galloway. Apparently, AI is making stuff cheaper, and that's why massive layoffs are happening. Apple might be cutting hundreds of jobs. Silicon Valley has laid off more than 20,000 employees. Self-driving car unit killing the project Salesforce, laid off about 700. I think AI is having an effect to some degree, but I don't think that's... These companies were struggling before AI came around. Vice was having problems before AI came into it. If AI was so useful, then AI would have saved Vice and not been a part of its demise. They would be pumping out really stupid articles auto-generated by some Google Gemini program or something.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of this is corporate. You know how they'll downsize, they'll do all these things to make their numbers look better than they are. I think that's part of it. Like, because if you look at some of these companies, it's like, oh well, some of them are doing really, really well. Like their year over year is better. Some of them not. But I think, or they're growing now. But I think some of that's just corporate skullduggery, where we're going to lay off a ton of people and it's going to make our numbers look great. And we can use AI. Like we can, in addition to with certain like your Disneys, some of these creative type places, your EAs, it's just because nobody's buying their crap now compared to how it used to be.
Yeah. The thing is that corporations are going to try to find something that they can point the finger at. And in this case, they're saying AI. I just don't buy that. The thing is that AI can be used to help. And I don't think that that's what they're doing with it. I think that instead they're just looking for a scapegoat. That's just what it feels like to me.
I know there are some websites who are pumping out generic articles that are AI generated.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Now, yes, you could be getting, well, the thing is I've used AI. I've used ChatGPT. The thing is that while it does help, I would never trust it. You know what I mean?
What
It's
with
like,
all of the drama going on with Google Gemini?
yeah. The thing is that I've used it actually at my job to generate like outlines for projects and things like that, and
Right, but you have to
is
edit
very
it
helpful.
afterwards.
Exactly. I have to still take what information I get from it. And the other thing that I've done a number of times is I've taken an email and it's like, I want this to sound a certain way. So I put in the information and I tell ChatGPT to rewrite this for me. And it could come up with an email. And I have actually said, hey, generate an email for me that has this information in it, but I still I take it and it's like, this doesn't sound like me. Somebody would know if I sent this out that it was coming from ChatGPT. So I still have to take the time to edit it so that it sounds like a human being wrote it. You know, it can be used to make your job easier. It can't right now be used to take over jobs. It's not that sophisticated yet.
As we talked about last week, it also depends on who created these products, because Google Gemini has a huge amount of problems. Least of which the AI generated images. They found that if they ask Google Gemini about what's worse, Adolfo Hitleria or Elon Musk's tweets, it said it couldn't figure out which one was worse. Somebody asked the question, is it okay to misgender Caitlyn Jenner to prevent a nuclear apocalypse? And it said, no, it's never okay to misgender people. So, nuclear apocalypse?
Oh my gosh.
Now,
Apparently
it goes even...
is coming.
It goes even farther. Hassan Piker, who I'm not a fan of, and by all accounts, he's a piece of shit. That being said, it implied when you looked into it that he was in Washington and accusations about him being involved in January 6th and going in the building. There's no indication he was in Washington or did anything of the sort. It's
Famous
implied...
January instigator Hassan Piker.
It was implied by the program, oh, well, there are rumors that certain people might have inappropriately touched children. It's apparently drawing information off of trolls and rumors because, once again, these programs don't know better.
Right.
And it's drawing this information of, well, there have been accusations. What, on like a forum somewhere? Like, what are you talking about, Google Gemini? Like, what is this?
It's just some guy, you know, insulting whoever because he doesn't really like him. And at this point, the AI is taking it as fact rather than this is just some angry troll who's ranting about, you know, his feelings online.
Well, the AI tries to treat it fairly, and it goes, the evidence hasn't been confirmed, but there have been accusations that he has done that. And it's like, there are no like, what are you talking about? He wasn't even there.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that on the face of it, anyone that knows anything about him would go, no. Like the program doesn't know, like, because it's it doesn't have any context for it, other than what you give it, which is probably like trolls. So, oh, that's amazing.
Let's shift slightly. Don't cheer the spate of media layoffs. Newspapers are essential to our republic. Bad news for the media often feels like good news for conservatives. So word that Vice and BuzzFeed are laying off hundreds of journalists weeks after the complete collapse of the Messenger won't elicit much sympathy from the right. Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. You're not supposed to feel bad. I feel great.
Well, this article had some interesting thing in it. I mean, so it talks about how things are becoming, which is, I mean, that doesn't apply to BuzzFeed and Vice, by the way, but like there's kind of this trend where like if the big guys are dying out, then that means the small, like, local newspapers are not going to live through this at all. Like, there's no way. And a more, I don't want to say nationalizing because that implies something else, but a more nationally focused media and a complete lack of regionalized sort of media. I mean, that is a bummer. Like, I don't know how bad or whatever it's going to be, because theoretically that could move on to other platforms. Hopefully, I don't know if it will, but that'd be interesting. But it is. I think that does kind of point to another issue in the United States in general, where like states are becoming less and less distinct from each other culturally and in their kind of idiosyncrasies. And I think that's a kind of a major bummer. I mean, the rest of that, yeah, I don't care about these people. I mean, they were the ones that laughed at coal miners losing their jobs and stuff. Like, they're not good people, but
no.
And these companies don't deserve my time anymore. But I think the implication there is something that's actually kind of interesting. And then, granted, that's at the very end of this article when they talk about that, which to me is the far more interesting part of the article.
Jason found a really interesting article. I'm just going to show the title because apparently I can't look at Bloomberg articles either. But I think it's an interesting idea. What's behind the video game layoffs? Players are sticking with old favorites. No, I think it's because new games are terrible, and there is such a glut of. It's the same thing that's occurring with movies, where it's like, oh, no one's seeing the new stuff. It's like, I've got all this old. Why would I watch a new movie that insults me, that's poorly put together? Like I have such a massive library of old content.
This is like the same title from that article we read, was it last week, about like movies and TV shows on streaming.
Same sort of thing, really precisely the same.
Yeah.
The thing is that if I have the choice between watching something that I know or playing a video game that I know is good, that's not going to insult me when I turn it on, why would I watch your stuff when I know, from reviews and from teasers and from all the stuff that you've been releasing up to this point, that it is going to be bad and it's going to insult me? Why would I consume your media? Why would I do that to myself? I'm going to go back to the stuff that's good, that doesn't insult me, and that I already know that I like. So the thing is that we've seen how well movies will do if they're good.
No.
Top Gun Maverick, big one right there.
Massive right-wing conspiracy, that movie. This is the same discussion we had last week.
Yeah,
we all know why these content sucks now. Content's terrible, and we're moving to things that are more familiar that won't offend us. It's Dune. That's why Dune's doing well. But let's push ourselves through the news dump. How are all these neckbeards and Republican fans of the X-Men? They're literally not for you. The X-Men apparently are not for you. They're not for you. Sometimes the men with patchy beards overflowing onto their neck, the ones who champion Comicsgate. We're still talking about Comicsgate. Say the most baffling and least self-aware things, like how they don't want the X-Men to be woke in the X-Men 97. Yes, those X-Men guess they never paid attention to the story. Let us look at what comic legend Chris Claremont said about X-Men 1982. The X-Men are hated, feared, and despised collectively by humanity for no reason that they are mutants. So what we have here, intended or not, is a book that's about racism, bigotry, prejudice. This makes sense, right? Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were inspired by the civil rights movement to create the superheroes. No, they actually weren't. If you actually want to know what inspired them, and they said this flat out in their interviews with Stan Lee explaining why the X-Men were created that way, they wanted to make a bunch of heroes, but they didn't want to bother trying to invent a bunch of different origin stories, so they gave them all the same origin story. Like that's what the X-Men and that sort of the implication of racism and the symbolism and stuff didn't happen until well after into the 80s, so to speak. So no, that's not what they were originally created for, and you got it completely wrong. On top of that, I'm going to guess that you've never read the X-Men and that you don't know what you're talking about. Hey, guess what? I read the X-Men extensively, and I watched the original cartoon. And somehow you're gatekeeping. It's like, this isn't for you. The X-Men are not for you. If you think it's woke, they were always woke. That's not what they were about. That's not what they were about, and that's not what they're really supposed to be about still.
They were never woke as the term has become now. They were inclusive, sure, but they were inclusive of their own people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's not wokeism.
Well, and here's the interesting part. The evil side, with Magneto and his ilk, they were also mutants, but their conclusion was the bad one. Their conclusion was, let's attack everybody and wipe out humanity. So it's like they're talking about racism, but don't be racist in return, I guess, or don't be excluding.
Well, Magneto's group was called the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
I think they dropped the evil because it was too obvious and just called themselves the Brotherhood, but still.
Well, the thing is that if you and I know I haven't really delved into comic books because of how bad they've been recently, but basically the mutants have now taken and they've created their own nation, and Magneto is no longer evil. He's on their ruling council, and so is what's his name, Apocalypse, and all these mutants who wanted to take over the world and end all humanity except for the mutants. They're basically fine now. They're good guys, sort of.
That's so dumb.
Yeah.
So, Ross, now we come to the final chapter of this night, the discussion that we've been probing for. Let's talk about Sweet Baby Inc.
Oh dear.
Just to get a little preface so people are aware who this company is. Sweet Baby Inc. is a company founded some time ago by former developers who thought that, well, let's just read their mission statement right out the gate. And I know it's not centered on it, but you'll have to believe me that the right 1/4 is what I say it is. Founded in 2018, Sweet Baby Inc. is a narrative development and consultation studio based in Montreal and working around the globe. Our mission is to tell better, more empathetic stories while diversifying and enriching video game industry. We aim to make games more engaging, more fun, more meaningful, and more inclusive for everybody. What do you think that they do, Jason?
They inject things like LGBTQ into video games for no apparent reason.
I mean, you're not entirely wrong. One of the first people to call this out was a YouTuber called Heel vs. Babyface. When he was upset with what was going on with Alan Wake 2. And he looked into it, and he traced problems with Alan Wake 2 to a company called Sweet Baby Inc. Sweet Baby Inc. is apparently a consultation firm, I guess, a writing group that consults on video games to make them more inclusive, more diverse, to basically insert their brand of politics into
video games. Yeah.
Right. So then the question goes, well, how much involvement have they had in video games? Well, let's look. Suicide Squad, our recent gem to come out recently. Alan Wake 2. Spider-Man 2. How about God of War Ragnarok? There are there are quite a few other games, more than this, that have been involved in it. On top of this, Well, actually, let's add more stuff from Ross. Ross, why don't you weigh in on that?
I mean, it's kind of seems to be kind of a continuation or a of the same concept that Feminist Frequency had back in their day. But except these guys seem very successful.
Which this podcast, if you listened to us back in the day, was a huge fan of. We talked about Anita Sarkeesian so much. And all she wanted to do was be a consultant for games to make them more politically correct.
Yeah.
And this is essentially what they wanted to do. And they have an agenda. And they've been involved in a lot of these big games. Now, here's the point. Since we're looking at this list, it's like, look, in a free world, you can make whatever game you want to. That doesn't mean you have to consume it or like it. I'm not a cancel person. I don't want to cancel games because they're poor, but I'm not going to participate, and I'm going to tell everybody I think these are bad. But I'm not going to cancel you. I'm not going to come after you. But let's talk briefly. Suicide Squad. 8, a big one. They are going to lose money on this product. So, did Sweet Baby Inc. have negative influence on the storytelling? Because one of the biggest problems was the storytelling. But once again, I would cite other people have claimed the game is also actually really bad. Alan Wake 2. A lot of criticisms of the story. It had problems.
Yeah.
Now, you might ask yourself, oh, I love that one. I own Alan Wake 2. I'm not a fan. And Alan Wake 1 is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Alan Wake 2 is terrible. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you. Apparently my MSN browser isn't working. I was going to open up an article from Rock, Paper, Shotgun. So it's like, well, how is this working? Suicide Squad did poorly. But it's like everybody talked about, oh, Alan Wake 2 is such a success. It hasn't made its money back yet.
Oh, dear.
And this is coming from the developers and Rock, Paper, Shotgun. Specifically, who said, let me read, and I quote, let's see, recouped a significant part of the development and marketing expenses, but there's still a distance to go.
Which, I mean, at least with video games, there's like the shelf life of making money off them is a little bit longer than film, but that's still not good to be.
How much do you think Alan Wake 2 cost? Because the article I'm looking at blames the problems with not making its money back or not making a dime on this yet because of ballooning costs, not because the game had reputation. Whether or not it's good or not, there was a reputation it developed, and a lot of people were scared away by it. So how much do you think it cost?
No. I don't know. 100 million? 50 million? I don't know.
Their estimation is 70.
Oh, that seems like a lot for a Detective Man game.
Well, right, and they're citing fastest selling Remedy game of all time still hasn't made its money back.
What a stupid stat that is.
Well, and I love Control.
$74 million. I just looked it up. It's about like 76 million.
Well, there you go.
A lot. For a non-multiplayer game, that's too much money.
Yeah, the game that came out with recently, Control, I loved. It's great. I bought it for Silver, who hasn't played it at all.
Well, what a shock.
It's really good. Yeah, well, I buy you stuff and you don't do anything with it. What do you want? So if we go,
time.
Oh, excuses. God of War Ragnarok did well. There were criticisms of its story, and these are not the only ones. Okay, Spider-Man 2. Everybody would say Spider-Man 2 is an unmitigated success. When you talk about the sales, you talk about how well it did. It was a big hype game. Now, after it came out, there have been some pulling back of the game not actually being very good. One guy actually apparently got all of the trophies for the game in 30 minutes.
Really? Wow, that is...
Oh my gosh.
Apparently. It's apparently not very long. So, if we were to compare it, Spider-Man 2 sold 10 million copies. games, which is really good. They probably made money on it. Good for them. The Miles Morales, which is a standalone game and one of the launch titles for PlayStation 5, did 12. So Spider-Man 2 did less than the Miles Morales game. The first Spider-Man game did 20.
Yeah.
Apparently it's not as loved as the original. It's not as long, and there are criticisms of the story.
Yeah.
And all of this is umbrellaed by the influence and involvement of one specific company that has been putting its hand on all of these things, Sweet Baby Inc. And there's a YouTuber called It's a Gundam who does a really good video, extensive research on all of the drama going behind the scenes and how involved Sweet Baby Inc. is in with all of these companies. How they advise on how to make your story more diverse, more inclusive, how to change everything. I don't think it's translating financially. And if you're upset with all of the politicking of your favorite games, you have someone to point at. Now, we could get into the weeds more, and we don't have to. Here's where it gets kind of more interesting. So there's an article that came out from Niche Gamer that pointed out a Steam list that somebody put together, listing every game that Sweet Baby Inc. has involved in. It's like Sweet Baby Inc. Game Tracker or something like that. Here's where it gets interesting. So apparently the people who did Sweet Baby Inc. found it, got upset, and were calling for, on Twitter, because there's evidence for it, that they were saying, hey, downvote this list, and here's the person who created it, report him. Which sounds like they're encouraging people brigading it. Now, here's where it gets odder. That Niche Gamer article that was reported by Clownfish TV, that article no longer exists. It's been pulled from their website. On top of that, a lot of the games that were on that tracker list is actually shorter. Like a bunch of it has been removed. So it's hard to say what's going on here.
Hey,
weigh in if you will.
Dirty any way you look at it.
I think my headset's having problems. Give me a sec.
Wow. I mean, the thing is that, do whatever you want, but seriously, you don't out people on the internet like that. That's so...
Well, it's very classless, and it's
yeah.
I mean, it's something that people have gotten in a lot of trouble for before, but I have a feeling that won't be the case here. There will be some sort of plausible deniability, but or maybe not so plausible, as the case may go.
In this case, if they're actually calling out you to report somebody, no.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Well, and I
Hey, I'm back.
you can't be mad at people for wanting to not support something that you were a part of. I don't know why that's but I'm sure they're gonna it'll try and be spun by certain people to be some sort of ist.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
That's just I don't really like. There's very few Rockstar games I like. That's why I don't buy them. It's like Red Dead Redemption was the last one I really loved.
Well, and the assumption that it's your responsibility to support the product, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not. No, I don't buy it. I guess the prime example for me is I used to love Halo. Halo was the game. Those games were amazing for me. The last time I haven't bought Halo Infinite. It's been out for 3 years now. I don't care. Those games suck now. I used to love Bungie. I don't play Destiny 2. I don't like Destiny 2. So I'm not going to bother with anything they do. It just doesn't. It's okay. Not everything's for everybody, but that's
right.
To try and because I just know it's going to get spun as some sort of Gamergate-esque problem, and it's just not the case. It just isn't.
Well, and the fact that they want to insert themselves as this sort of diversity narrative influence in games writing, and then get upset when people found out that they're a common denominator in a lot of the influence going on in gaming, and everybody going, hey, they're doing terrible things, we don't like it, and then be like, how dare you? We wanted to clandestinely in the background change things.
What's interesting too is like part of what they say they're doing is they're helping with the story, like very vague, right? Which to me that would be more like, I don't know how to word this. Like if I didn't know any better, I'd be like, well, that's alarming. Can these huge billion-dollar companies really, or if it's a smaller studio, like multi-million-dollar companies, not hire people that can write? Like what?
Yeah.
Why do you have to outsource to that? Which I would go like, well, that's a really bad sign of corporate culture. But the reality is this is like sensitivity readers for the digital age.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is all this is, and which, hey, you know what? I respect the hustle, I guess, but boy, your output's sure not great. Like it seems to be lacking, and like you're making things worse, or certainly at least not adding to it in any positive way.
Yeah. The thing is I've said this before, but anytime the word inclusivity is flashed now in any type of media, I cringe away from it because of what it has become, because of the connotations of it. And it's like, look, if you can't see yourself in the protagonist of a work, it's not the author's fault that you can't. I would question if you have any empathy at all inside your soul if you can't see some quality in the protagonist, in the supporting cast, and whoever you're talking about in the work. If you can't see anything unless they look exactly like you are, react exactly as you would, then there's something missing in you, not in the work.
Well, this has actually started to pass into things like animation, where if you're animating somebody, like literally, if a black woman's being animated, you have to have a black woman animated, otherwise it's not authentic. And it's like, well, first of all, I thought actors were able to play people they're not. It's not like, Russell Crowe is actually a gladiator sort of thing. What? And on top of that, the animator is even more removed from that as directly an actor. There's not to go outside the box of what we normally talk about, but there's an interesting comment that the CEO of this company made, where she said when she was younger, she used to write herself into stories and make herself the main character so that she could see herself in it. And that's an interesting, not only because of Jason's comment, but there's a thing in psychology where if they observe young children play, young women, if they're given, let's say, a Batman doll, well, let's transverse that. Young men, if they're given Batman, they'll play with Batman and they're like, oh, I'm Batman and I'm going to go save the city. And I'm going to, that's how they interact with the figure. Young women transpose themselves on Batman. So instead of pretending to be Batman, women take Batman shopping and they have him go do other things with his, right. They essentially put themselves into the toy, whereas men become it, sort of thing. Whereas a little boy is like, oh, it's a truck, and a girl would interact with it completely differently. They'd be like, oh, I'm going to take this to the beach or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's curious that's how I found that interesting based upon her comments, because I was like, that is a thing in psychology, that young girls do actually put themselves into the content.
And it does explain, it does explain this company, and it further explains why this company is so bad at what it's doing. It keeps trying to inject itself and its values into its clients, rather than helping them find ways to include the community. They're not doing that. They're not trying to include the community. They're trying to include themselves.
Awesome. Let's wrap this up. I'm going to finish with a couple of things really quickly. I finished Avatar. It got worse.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Number 2, I saw Oppenheimer. It's okay. Like, it's been nominated for 13 Academy Awards. Yada, yada, yada. It's not about making the atomic bomb. I would say it's more about the McCarthy era investigations into Oppenheimer. And him being his halfway involvement in the Communist Party. That seems mostly what that movie's about.
I was very disappointed with that, and I only
I wanted a movie about the atomic bomb, and it's you would agree, wouldn't you? You saw
yeah. I want something with the atomic bomb. That's what I expected going into it. That's what the whole like cover art even is.
Yeah.
It's like a big explosion behind him. It's like, nope, no bomb.
Well, it's like the early part is like it's like he's involved with the Communist Party, not as a member because he never joined. But his brother's a card-carrying member. His second wife is a card-carrying member. He would go to the meetings. And then, like, the government would follow him. And they'd write down license plates. And they knew what he was involved in. And then he would organize meetings at his school. And then his friend tried to get him involved in the Manhattan Project. But he can't because he's too directly involved in it. So he had to calm things down so he could be participant in one of the biggest breakthroughs in scientific history. And then at the end, there's like an hour of him being investigated by a senator. How close were you to the Communist Party? What were you doing? And then it's like, oh, so it's all the investigations and what he was doing and the communist scare. That's the backdrop of everything while he's basically the story wants you to think, look at this great thing he did and how they're dragging him through the mud. That's essentially how the story's sort of selling it. What else did I watch? Oh, I watched Shogun. The first 2 episodes are out. The third one should come out Monday. There's going to be about 10. It's really good. Tell me it's good. It's really good. Shogun's pretty great. I would recommend it. It's authentic. It's authentic as far as Japanese culture. What I've kept saying privately between all of us, I just want a really good samurai era movie that's got a good budget, because I'll watch the Japanese stuff and they just don't have money or they don't have like the cinematography. It's a Western studio that's heading this up and it's very Japanese based. The 2 head writers, one's a white guy and one's a Japanese guy. All of the credits are just resplendent with Japanese involvement in it. It is very authentic and it works really well. Oh, it's really good. It's really good. So far, we're at episode 2. Who knows if they're going to throw this off a cliff? But so far, it's great. And they don't. Oh yeah, as opposed to Avatar, and they don't do the chintzy thing where everybody speaks English. All the Japanese speak Japanese, so there's subtitles for all the Japanese, and there's an Englishman in it, and he speaks English, and they sort of fudge it where it's like it's implied he's speaking Portuguese with people, but it's English. So. But it's really good. I would recommend it. So far, it's available on Hulu. It is done by FX. Weirdly enough, it is a Disney subsidiary product. Watch Shogun. Jason, anything you want to leave us with?
Now that you said that about about Shogun and the Japanese people in it are actually speaking Japanese, that was something that I felt was a little bit odd about Dune. Is when they kept switching between languages.
To Fremen.
It just felt kind of weird. Yeah.
Harkonnens had their own language. I don't remember him explicitly fleshing out languages, Frank Herbert. So this had to have been some extrapolation.
I mean, yeah, the Fremen did have their own language because obviously
No, they had their own language. I don't recall. Frank Herbert is not J.R.R. Tolkien. I don't recall Frank Herbert writing out the Fremen language. No,
he didn't. But
so there had to have been some creativity on their part.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the last thing I'm going to say on that. So,
Ross,
I got nothing, man. I'm just excited for some more Game Pass games. Hopefully, it gets through some more. But we'll see.
Diablo 4 has come to Game Pass.
Yeah, hopefully it's not terrible.
Yeah, good hype.
I'm not holding out hope.
Silver?
I got nothing.
She's off to smash
awesome.
Tokyo again.
Oh no.
I'm just thinking about Tokyo. Can't stop thinking about Tokyo.
No, remember this episode, she is the Shai Halud. The Great Worm. Paul becomes famous from riding the Shai Halud. She'll return to Godzilla form next week. Thanks everybody for coming by. Like, comment, subscribe.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button. We appreciate you nonetheless, and we'll see you next time.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DGPodcast or on Instagram at DistractedGamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy!